how can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
That voice you just heard sounds remarkably like a person, right? But it's actually Google Assistant, and it can hold entire conversations over the phone on your behalf. Yeah, I'm scratching my head too. Senior technology reporter Matthew Braga is here to turn us all into techies and kind of break this down for us. This is incredible.
It's kind of scary, right? I mean, one of the things I think that's striking people is how natural this thing sounds, right? It's very different from you talking to Siri, talking to Alexa. It sounds almost like an actual person. So
I think the person on the other end of the line had no idea that it was talking to artificial intelligence.
No, and that raises some questions that we'll get to later, but it's interesting how they were able to do this, right? I mean, they've looked at the way that, you know, you and I normally have conversations, right? We know when to pause. We know when you ask me for clarification, for example. We know sometimes I use things like uhs and ums, right? All of these things that they've integrated into the delivery of this sort of, you know, artificially intelligent conversation haver, right? To make it sound a little bit more natural. And the other thing as well that's also worth noting is it's really, really focused as well. They've basically said, okay, unlike Siri or Alexa, which have to answer all sorts of questions about any possible topic imaginable, these things only have to talk about two things: booking a haircut, booking a restaurant reservation, right? Which means that you don't have to train it on as much data. There's not as many ways that conversation can go. It's really kind of focused, and so you can make it sound a lot more real.
Yeah, it's incredible just how natural it sounds, but is this then going to be a boon for the scammers out there and the telemarketers, because they might be using this to call us?
Yeah, and we already get some of those automated messages, right?
Yes, we do.
That very obviously sound automated, but yeah, are they going to start to sound more and more real like we're hearing here? I mean, the good news is it's not yet, right? I mean, this is something that Google is working on, and it really does leverage the vast amount of data that Google has access to. I mean, they put out a blog post where they said part of what allowed them to sort of really examine the utterances and sort of, you know, subtleties of human speech was all of the call data that they've gathered from people making voice calls using Google services. And so that's sort of one side of it as well. I mean, it's also worth noting too that it's not perfect. You know, if the conversation encounters something that the AI can't deal with, then a human can kind of come in and take over. But certainly I think this does raise the specter of, well, what happens when this technology becomes accessible to people beyond just Google, right? Artificial intelligence in general has become accessible very, very quick, and so it's certainly something to watch.
And it's so quick that we haven't dealt with all of the ethical issues around something like this, using AI to speak and make calls on your behalf.
Yeah, I mean, the big one you mentioned, right, is this conversation is taking place in that clip we heard, and the person on the other end doesn't even know that they're speaking with a computer. And that raises a lot of questions, right? I mean, is there a responsibility to sort of inform that person that they're not speaking to a human?
Oh, this is Google Assistant.
Absolutely, yeah. Right? Is it fair to essentially trick someone into thinking they're talking to a human when they're not? And so this is one of those questions that Google actually itself says we don't even know the answer to. This is uncharted territory. They say they're probably going to sort of have to put some sort of warning, but they're still figuring out exactly how you do that. I mean, we're very much in uncharted waters, which is, I think, for a lot of people, what makes it so exciting, but also scary at the same time.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Dwight.